Things are gonna get crazy!
Most everyone's mad here.
Season's greetings, my beautiful people, and welcome to another fun-filled episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. But this time around, I promise this is not going to be as big of an episode as last week, because seriously, I think that one will go on record to be the biggest episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast, at least in a long time, largely due to all the different announcements that Disney has made. Seriously, that segment alone was just 1 full hour. It's just absolutely ridiculous. But don't worry, at least for this episode, things are gonna go and get back to normal. Oh, and by the way, there is one announcement that I would like to make, and this is gonna be something I will be repeating at the end of the episode, but considering that most of you guys are already here, I might as well go and officially say this right now in case there might be some people who would want to go and leave early. And I just want to go and say that there will be no episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast next week. And the reason why is because, well, next week we are going to be fully in the holidays, like around Christmas and all that stuff, and people like preparing for New Year's and like maybe the other holidays as well, like Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, or you know, like any people who want to extend their holidays that could also go onto the 26th as well. And during that time, there isn't going to be a whole lot of entertainment news anyway, so there really won't be that much material for me to go and actually do a full episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. But most importantly, the reason why I want to go and skip next week's episode is mainly because since it is the holidays, it's more important that you guys go and spend your time with your friends, your family, your loved ones, or what would most likely be the case, your presents. I know that technically it is a tougher time this year, especially with the pandemic, where like a lot more people will be restricted when it comes to who they could see, and there are some, including myself, are in a major lockdown. Like, this is going to be the first time ever in my life where I'm going to have a Christmas where I will unfortunately not have a family reunion, mainly because we are back to becoming like into a very strict lockdown. Like, I'm just going to warn you that after Christmas, at least in the province of Quebec, no, that's not the kind of cough you may think. But anyways, as I was saying, in the province of Quebec, after Christmas until January 11th, we are in like a full-on lockdown to the point where even non-essential stores are going to be closed. So I know that it is going to be a tougher time during this holiday season, but it is still important to make the most out of your time to spend it with your friends and loved ones as much as possible. So again, there will be no episode next week, and I will put AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast back on the week afterwards on January 2nd. And again, I will be repeating this message at the end of this episode. So, with that said, I would like to go into the chat wall, and I would like to go and ask you all, are you all ready for today's episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast? Let me hear you. Are you ready now? Okay, let's see. Are we prepared? Yes. Yes. All right. That's great to hear. People are ready. Now, with all that said, it is now time that we shall go and get things started. And to start things off, we are gonna go and begin with an annual tradition. I know a lot of people love to keep their eyes on the award season, thinking that's gonna be the moment where they will reveal the best of the best when it comes to movies and stuff like that. However, there is actually one award, or technically not really an award, but a title per se, that is a lot more prestigious than any award, especially the Oscars. Even the Oscars, I meant. And with this title, this is the one that really does signify that a movie, or at least an American film, is pretty much going to go down in history as one of the most important movies that has made a massive impact in our lives. And what I'm going to talk about, of course, is the National Film Registry. Yes, it's that time of the year again, in which the Library of Congress has named 25 movies to be a part of the National Film Registry. And for those of you who might not know what the National Film Registry is all about, I'm going to go and just read you a little passage here directly from the Library of Congress's website that does explain a little bit about the mission of the National Film Registry and what it tries to do. So, it states here, the National Film Preservation Board, or NFPB, originally created by the National Film Preservation Act of 1988 and most recently reauthorized in 2016, serves as an advisory group to the Librarian of Congress. The board consists of 44 members and alternates representing the film industry, archives, scholars, filmmakers, and others who comprise the diverse American motion picture community. As its primary mission, the board works to ensure the survival, conservation, and increased public availability of America's film heritage. The board realizes its mission by counseling the librarian on the current state of the film preservation, apprising him or her of progress on initiatives such as the National Film Preservation Plan, and advising him or her on the annual selection of the National Film Registry. And you might be wondering, well, how does a movie get selected, though? Well, to go into my article here on Variety, it states, a place on the list, always made up of 25 films, guarantees the film will be preserved under the terms of the National Film Preservation Act. The criteria for the selection is that the movies are culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. So basically, as I said before at the start, this is possibly the most prestigious title you can ever get for an American film, mainly because it will add on this law that will make sure that the legacy will be preserved forever, for generations, and for many years to come. So this is a very massive deal if you would have a movie that would ultimately earn this title. And for this year, they have comprised 25 brand new films, ranging from movies that go all the way back to 1913, up to the most recent with 2010. And I'm going to go and read you the list here, and you might actually find some very familiar names. The list here includes, in the order of their release date, Suspense, Kid Auto Races at Venice, Bread, The Battle of the Century, With Kara and Camera Around the World, Cabin in the Sky, Outrage, The Man with the Golden Arm, Lilies of the Field, A Clockwork Orange, Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song, What Stacks, Grease, The Blues Brothers, Losing Ground, Illusions, The Joy Luck Club, The Devil Needs Sleep. The Devil Never Sleeps. It's the opposite. He doesn't need sleep. He never sleeps. Anyways, Buena Vista Social Club, The Ground, Manua Key, Temple Under Siege, The Hurt Locker, The Dark Knight, and Freedom Riders. But hold on a sec, I only listed 24. Isn't there one that I am missing? Ah, yes. Well, I saved the best one for last. The most notable one for last, actually. Because out of all the movies that were listed here, even though there are some very notable ones, including Grease, The Dark Knight, The Blues Brothers, and A Clockwork Orange, the one that everybody is talking about is the one animated edition of this year, 2001's animated feature, Shrek. Yes, folks, among all this list, On top of the Hurt Locker, The Dark Knight, A Clockwork Orange, and many, many more, they also included Shrek to become one of the movies to be added for the National Film Registry because it has been considered culturally, historically, and or aesthetically significant. And that's the big thing about Shrek right now. And that's what I want to talk about. It's the fact that Shrek has been added to the National Film Registry. And this is a very massive deal, especially with the fact that this is the first time ever that a DreamWorks animation movie has been added to the National Film Registry. In fact, this is the first time, I believe, you could correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe this is the first ever animated feature in history, or the first non-Disney animated feature in history to be added to the National Film Registry. Yes, there have been non-Disney cartoons before, but the thing is that the rest are just cartoons. They're just animated shorts. Stuff like Gerald McBoing Boing or What's Opera Doc. You know, they're not movies per se, but Shrek is a movie. And that's why it ended up getting onto the list and really making a big deal of the fact that it made itself very historically significant. And honestly, this is one of those cases where it may seem like a massive surprise that out of all the movies out there, Shrek is the one to be added. But this is the case where the more you do think about it, the more that it actually does make sense. Now, of course, the way Shrek got in is a little bit more different, or I would say a lot more different than something like The Dark Knight or A Clockwork Orange, why they were on the list. Shrek got in a different way, but it still got in it still got in regardless. It may have taken a different path as The Dark Knight, but it still landed in the same spot as The Dark Knight. And when you look into the qualifications, they say that a movie has to be culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant in order to be in the registry. And honestly, I think Shrek does fit in all three of them. And I'll go and explain why. Number one is the aesthetics of it all. With the way that Shrek was made, it really did make a massive impact to the point that you could say Shrek really did set a brand new standard for many animated features to come. Shrek really was the one that made the massive transition from the Disney Renaissance, where back in the 1990s, almost every animated feature had to be a musical, and then moving forward in the 2000s, where most animated features tried to be a bit more like Shrek. Where with Shrek, it completely took a different path than Disney. It's a path that is a lot more cynical and a lot more comedy oriented. Yes, there have been a lot of comedy animated features before, but Shrek really was the one that really emphasized that this is a full-on comedy first and foremost. Even before being an animated feature, this is most importantly a comedy movie where the laughs do play a far bigger role than most other animated features that would try to do the same thing. Comedy is very common in animated features, but Shrek is one of the first modern animated features that really took its comedy element and made it a very important factor and an element that is supposed to be the most memorable thing about the movie. Like, the one thing for people to walk out from is that it really did make them laugh. And this is not even to mention about the computer animation aspect of it. Yes, we know Pixar is the first to really go into the movies with fully computer animation. They would be the first ones, especially with movies like the first two Toy Story films and A Bug's Life, to step in and really present themselves that they can make computer animation, purely computer animation, and they can just make a full-blown movie out of it with an engaging story and stuff like that. But Shrek, on the other hand, this is one of the rare moments, or what was one of the rare moments where you would have a computer animated feature not from Disney, not associated from Disney at all, and just really be a massive hit. I'll go and explain this a little later, but this was the first time that, or not necessarily the first time, but this was one of the rare moments in which Disney actually had massive competition in the animation industry. And with computer animation, like back then, it was considered very groundbreaking. There had never been a movie that looked like this. Not even the Pixar films looked like what Shrek tried to do. And even before, like, yeah, sure, DreamWorks made Ants beforehand, but it didn't get as much attention as Shrek did. And it's because of movies at that time like Shrek, Jimmy Neutron, and Ice Age, where they would end up influencing the entire industry to ultimately reject hand-drawn and move forward with computer animation, where nowadays computer animation is now considered the norm for the industry, especially when you want to make mainstream animated features at a major studio. So at least that is the aesthetic of it all. And then you have the historical aspect, and I've already covered a lot of this in the aesthetics of it all, but with Shrek, there is no denying that Shrek really put himself in animation history and in film history, like being highly prominent, not only being a major influencer in terms of computer animated features, but it also became a lot of historical firsts. Keep in mind that Shrek is actually the first ever animated feature to win an Oscar for that brand new category back then of Best Animated Feature. This is a title that Shrek got, not Disney, but rather Shrek earned that title of being the first Best Animated Feature winner. And on top of that, just like I explained a little bit before, but this really was the movie that made DreamWorks Animation Disney's biggest animation competitor at the time. Yeah, DreamWorks was releasing some movies, and some were decent hits, like Ants and The Prince of Egypt and stuff like that, but it really was Shrek that really made a massive influence, that really made a lot of people shift their attention from Disney to DreamWorks. And back in the 2000s, back then, the major competitors were either DreamWorks or Pixar. It was those two really butting heads. And yeah, we had other studios entering the scene as well, like Blue Sky and Sony Animation, but all eyes were on DreamWorks and Pixar because they were the ones delivering hit after hit with computer animated films. Each one of them were massive successes. And I know that lately there have been more and more flops from DreamWorks Animation, but back in its heyday, like, they would be producing a lot of successful movies, and especially with the format that they had, where they were mass producing animated features. Like, keep in mind, this was the studio where back then they would keep releasing hit after hit while releasing 2 to 3 animated features annually, which can almost be considered, especially back then, it was considered unheard of. That, like, back then, mass producing animated films was like 1 movie a year. That was considered too much back then. But with the way that DreamWorks was really going full steam ahead, like, not only were they doing it, but they were able to afford to do it. And not to mention, another historical factor is that Shrek really did set the standard of making franchise films, or at least introducing making franchise movies in the animation scene. Yes, like, even back then, franchise movies are, like, they have been highly prominent for many years and many decades even. But when it comes to Shrek, that was the first one to really introduce the concept of making franchise movies, where Shrek would go on to go and create several movies following afterwards, including Shrek 2, Shrek the Third, Shrek Forever After, and even making a spin-off movie with Puss in Boots. And this is not even to mention about the other elements that spun off from Shrek, like a lot of television specials, shorts, an entire or like several rides now with excuse me about that, it's just my lunch. Just wanted to drop by and say hello. But anyways, where was I? Yes, like you got the TV specials, you got a stage adaptation that went to Broadway, you also got a whole bunch of rides, especially, most notably, Shrek 4D, and many, many more. Like, really, like, Shrek became, like, back then, Shrek was, like, the biggest animated franchise ever. Like, even bigger than anything that Disney was making at the time. Like, keep in mind, this was even back when, like, Disney wasn't all too keen on making sequels and stuff like that. And yet, here is Shrek really being the first to set the standard of what animated franchise would become. Like, then you would have, like, plenty of other franchises that would follow into Shrek's footsteps, like Ice Age or Hotel Transylvania, or even some of the other DreamWorks films like Kung Fu Panda or Madagascar and How to Train Your Dragon. So really, there is a lot of historical elements in which Shrek really was the first for many different things. And in a way, you could say Shrek really did set a brand new standard in the animation industry. But then finally, there is also the third element of being in the National Film Registry, and probably the most curious of them all, and that has to be the cultural aspect of it all. Because this was something that I have already talked about in one of my videos. I've already done like a whole video essay on the history of Shrek, how he pretty much went from one of the biggest animated franchises to just a flat-out meme lord, where Shrek was pretty much one of the default subjects when it comes to making weird and abstract memes, per se. Yeah, there was a time in the 2000s where, like, we all recognized Shrek as a major animated franchise, but then even following afterwards, Shrek's popularity kind of took a bit of a different turn, and just became the subject of, like, many different random memes. Of course, you guys might remember the meme of Shrek is love or Shrek is life, or you might remember those weird YouTube videos where people would turn up Gmod or other softwares like, what was Valve's animation software, Source Filmmaker or something like that? Or, anyways, like, you guys probably know about that whole, like, all those different Shrek memes and all those different Shrek videos where Shrek would be doing something weird with either Heavy or the Scout and stuff like that. Like, yeah, there was a weird moment, and not to mention, of course, where, like, Shrek kind of became a phenomenon where, like, all the Shrek puns are just taken to the extreme. It's like, it ain't ogre till it's ogre. Many people talking about layers, and, like, people making cults out of Shrek. And not to mention, there was even a whole festival dedicated to just Shrek. Not even officially sponsored by DreamWorks Animation or anything. It was just a full-on Shrek festival where they even made, I think they even premiered a whole reanimated of the movie Shrek. Like, everything from the Shrek movie, but now just completely reanimated. So there was, at one point, it made, like, a very strange phenomenon. And yet, it still managed to keep Shrek relevant. Because the thing is, the funny thing about the National Film Registry is that it never mentioned once about how you can be culturally, historically, or aesthetically relevant, or how significant that you could be. And technically, Shrek was very much significant even after making all those movies. Even after DreamWorks was done with making all these films and they finished off with Shrek Forever After, the relevancy of Shrek still continued on during the 2010s when people would be making all these memes, and why people still recognize Shrek to this day. Now, of course, the memes are not as prominent as they used to be nowadays, but still, they still kept the spirit of Shrek alive. It still made Shrek relevant. It still made Shrek a popular cartoon character as much as other cartoon characters that are continuously used as memes, like Bugs Bunny or, well, I was about to say Mickey Mouse, but not even Mickey has all that much memes, as much as SpongeBob, or as much as any of those cartoon characters. It still made Shrek relevant, it still made Shrek popular, and most importantly, it still made Shrek significant. And in a way, these Shrek memes kind of also set a new standard for many different memes to come. It did set a brand, it pretty much made a new template of how memes would be in the following years, and it still kept Shrek popular. So again, it doesn't matter how the movies would be significant, as long as they still are significant, even after many years after its release, then that's the main thing that is important. That is that is the major reason why a movie would make such a huge cultural impact. And yeah, I know that technically, like I said before, it is definitely a weird way for Shrek to be culturally significant, where it's unlike the ways that movies like The Dark Knight or The Blues Brothers or Grease or even A Clockwork Orange are still culturally significant, but it is still culturally significant nonetheless. And I would say overall, I think this moment here of adding Shrek as part of the National Film Registry, this was something that I've stumbled upon on social media, and it was actually Shafrillas on Twitter that actually said it best. And by the way, I just want to quickly mention that I know that maybe in the past I've probably been a little hard on Shafrillas and his videos and stuff like that, and for that I do want to apologize. So I just just want to move on and just try to be more peace and speak more positively for about Shafrillas moving forward. But the thing is with Shafrillas, he actually said it best on Twitter that with what happened here with the National Film Registry and their edition of Shrek, this is a symbolic moment that we are living in the post-meme era of Shrek. And what he meant by that is that nowadays, we don't see many of these Shrek memes anymore. People aren't going around saying like Shrek is love, Shrek is life, or whatever like that. People are not making all these weird, crazy Gmod videos that feature Shrek doing random, glitchy things. Nowadays, when people think of Shrek, they don't think of the weird memes, they think about the movies. And now, that's what people are pretty much thinking about, is just the movies and the cultural impact that it has in our lives, and especially as a feature film and as a whole movie franchise, where people look back at the first movie and they would see a groundbreaking feature that set a brand new standard in the animation industry. And then afterwards, there was the sequel, Shrek 2, which many people, including myself, would say is the best Shrek movie out there, and easily one of DreamWorks Animation's best features. And then there was also Puss in Boots, which actually turned out to be a pretty solid sequel. No, not a solid sequel. A pretty solid spin-off that right now, one of the directors of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is actually working on a follow-up of Puss in Boots. We don't talk about the third or fourth movie, however. That we can pretty much ignore. But, in all seriousness, though, it is very much understandable why Shrek has now become a culturally significant animated feature that, yes, it should be something to be added to the National Film Registry, where it definitely is culturally important. And like Shafrilla said, it is a movie in which we are living in the post-meme era, where we are now thinking about the movie itself instead of just the memes, where we can actually look at Shrek and appreciate for what it is, an animated movie, and a pretty solid animated movie at that. Alright, so with that said now, I would like to go into the chat wall, and I would like to ask you all, how do you feel about Shrek being added to the National Film Registry? Do you think you understand why it was added? Do you think it's a good choice? Do you think it's a little bit more weird? Do you think there are others that would probably be more deserving? Let me know what you all think about this. Okay, I have to really commend the team behind Shrek for such a prestigious honor. I absolutely love the film and its sequels, aside from the one we don't talk about. Which one? Because I mentioned that there are two. Anyway, so I'm absolutely ecstatic about this, but one question remains. What's next? It's pretty obvious to predict Toy Story or Spider-Verse would be next, but personally, I'd quite like to see the film The Peanuts movie and Coco get in, or just the Meme Bee movie. Okay, I just want to make a statement right now. Honestly, I'm quite surprised they have... If that's actually the case, that they have yet to add Toy Story onto the National Film Registry, then honestly, they probably should as soon as possible, because I think that should be one that they should add. Or, like, honestly, if they haven't already, of course. But I'm just gonna say right now, when it comes to movies like Spider-Verse, Peanuts movie, or Coco, or any of those, don't expect them to be added soon. That's not going to happen, at least for a long time. And I'm not saying that based on my opinion or anything. It is actually because this is a rule for the National Film Registry, where they the latest movie that they are allowed to add is a movie that is at least 10 years old. So right now, considering we are in 2020, the latest that they could add is a movie from 2010, and that's it. So with that said, don't expect movies like Spider-Verse or Coco to be added, because they cannot qualify because they're way too new. So give it some time for them to fully make their cultural or aesthetic impact, and then we will see if they can be added to the National Film Registry. I just want to make a clarify right there. Let's see. I am so happy that Shrek is now part in the NFR. Shrek was one of my favorite animated movies as a child, and it still is today. I personally would have put it next year to celebrate the film's 20th anniversary, but congratulations to both DreamWorks and the crew on this movie to reach this accomplishment. Well, then again, I mean, we are close to its 20th anniversary. It is now going to be like, right now, Shrek, as I'm recording this, Shrek is like 19 and a half years. Ooh, excuse me. But you know, that's going to be a funny thing next week, actually. Next week. That's going to be funny for next year, because now, like, Shrek will end up becoming relevant again, and people will talk about him on social media, because it's going to be 20 years since Shrek. And I don't know if many people will be ready to handle that, because of the fact that Shrek is now 20 years old. So it's kind of crazy to really think about. Let's see, what else do we have here? This story is making me think that Shrek is seeing the future, and he's seeing this, like he's like that's even gonna happen, which is happening right now. And then he starts off with his day while Smash Mouth goes on. Okay. Let's see. Third movie was pretty bad, yes, but the fourth one ups the quality and turns out to be a pretty decent conclusion to the movie franchise for now. Well, you know, in my opinion, I would say that I kind of do agree with you. Like, the thing is, with the fifth movie, yes, I do agree that it is better than the third one. And it's not really bad per se, but it's still a movie that I would consider it to be just, really. It's just like, it's in the range of like mediocre, because basically all that movie is just It's a Wonderful Shrek. That it's basically taking the plot line of It's a Wonderful Life, except remove the Christmas element, and you just have what if Shrek never existed and stuff like that. That's pretty much it, honestly. So like, the thing is, yeah, it's not as bad, but it's not all that memorable either. Anyways, what else do we got here? Do we have any other comments? Let's see. Nice to see that non-Disney animated movies can be placed in the registry. Maybe one day there can be hope for movies like The Iron Giant or The Secret of NIMH, but I'm still hoping for The Nightmare Before Christmas one day. Oh, honestly, I'm not 100% sure about The Secret of NIMH, or maybe, I don't know about Iron Giant. But The Nightmare Before Christmas, though, oh, that can actually be a solid one to add to the National Film Registry. Absolutely. Especially, like, that's definitely one movie where its cultural impact is debatably even bigger than Shrek. So that could be one that I could definitely see added one day to the National Film Registry. Let's see, what else do we got here? Let's see. For the movies, I haven't seen so far, such as Grease, Blues Brothers, Joy Luck Club, and Hurt Locker. Congrats for making it on the list, by the way. For the movies I have seen so far, such as The Dark Knight, A Clockwork Orange, and especially Shrek. So, congrats to making it on the list, too, along with everyone that has worked so hard to making these movies, especially Stanley Kubrick and DreamWorks Animation. Hope to see another non-Disney animated film or a comic book film like 2002's Spider-Man make it next year. And yeah, that's also another major thing to mention, technically, that if there is one movie that is more noteworthy, well, not more noteworthy, but as noteworthy as Shrek, that is added onto the list, it's The Dark Knight. Now, I could be wrong, but I don't know if there has been another superhero movie that was added to the National Film Registry. Maybe the original Superman with Christopher Reeve, or maybe Tim Burton's Batman. Maybe that might have been in there. Okay, so was Superman added? Okay, yeah, so apparently Superman, yeah, they did add Superman, but yeah, it is still a very rare thing that a superhero movie would be added. And yeah, The Dark Knight, absolutely, since many people to this day do consider it one of the best Batman movies out there. So that shouldn't be that big of a surprise where a movie with that much significance would be added to the list. So that is a good thing to note. Let's see now. As I said regarding to your post saying Shrek is history, you had me scared for a minute, Matt, but I am happy that Shrek made it into the National Film Registry. This is a classic, so it is needed. Yeah, that is absolutely true. I mean, yeah, maybe it's not the best wording, but then again, like, I mean, if Shrek can be love, and if Shrek can be life, then Shrek can be history as well. And now Shrek will forever be in history in the National Film Registry. Let's see now. I think I'll go and read one more before we jump into the next story. I think Shrek deserves to be on there, and I think there should be more non-Disney animated films like Fritz the Cat and An American Tail, but also add The Social Network. And it deserves to be there so hard. I'm a film student and I want to become a director, but if that doesn't work out, then I would like to work for the National Film Registry or a museum like MoMA or a school like UCLA to protect and restore classic movies for generations to come. Also, Americans can nominate any movie through their website. Oh, so, okay, so it's something that any person can just recommend, hey, can you add this movie? Okay, so that makes sense. So I think with all that said, though, I would just like to go and conclude. I think this is something the chat wall has already said, but definitely congratulations to the people at DreamWorks Animation for having their movie be added to the National Film Registry, along with the other filmmakers that had their movies added to the list this year. Okay, so moving on to the next story, we are about to enter into a subject that is very rare for me to actually talk about in this podcast, which is sports. Yeah, I know, it's weird to hear about sports in AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast, but there is actually a reason. As we all know, the pandemic really hit the sports industry very, very hard. I mean, they still managed to go and play some of their games, but still, though, things were not the same as much as it were before the pandemic. However, for one particular sport, they are going to be doing plans in order to try to bring in new audiences and to reclaim that tradition of airing sports onto television, and especially getting people back into the habit of watching their sports. And that is especially the case with the NFL bringing in Nickelodeon onto their mix. And yes, What is going to be happening so far is that the NFL is going to be teaming up with Nickelodeon, especially for their January 10th wildcard game, where they will be implementing elements of Nickelodeon in order to bring in new audiences to go and watch football, which in this case here, the target audience is going to be kids. And this is the NFL's big goal, at least with this little round of their wildcard game, is it's to have kids to go and start watching more football. And they're going to be adding in Nickelodeon elements to go and encourage them to go and start watching more football. In fact, let me go and read you what the big game plan here is going to be with the NFL and with Nickelodeon. So it states here, again, reading from my source on Variety, Nickelodeon will put on a game that parents and kids can watch together. The kid-focused event will feature play-by-play commentary and reporting from two members of the network's popular All That sketch comedy series, animated graphics, and intriguing visuals. So basically here, there are going to be two major properties that Nickelodeon is going to be implementing in order to really spice things up for the football game and for kids to actually get engaged while watching football. And that is going to be All That. And as you can see from this article here, they highly present SpongeBob. Now, to present the aspect of All That, what they are going to do, and I'm going to read a little bit more, it's actually this part right here. Nickelodeon will rely on Noah Eagle, the 23-year-old son of CBS Sports regular Ian Eagle and the new play-by-play voice for Los Angeles Clippers games, and CBS Sports CBS Sports analyst Nate Burleson to give viewers colorful commentary and play-by-play. They will be paired with All That cast member Gabrielle Navia Green. And meanwhile, Green's All That colleague, Lex Lumpkin, will report from the sidelines. So basically, in terms of the commentary, you are going to get the two sportscasters that will provide their commentary on the game, but at the same time, there's also going to be an All That member that will be joining the two, along with another All That member that's just going to be on the sidelines. But then again, some of you might be wondering, what about SpongeBob, though? What role is he going to play in all this? Well, I tried to figure that out, and it's actually going to be in this little section here, where they're going to be using SpongeBob more for promotional purposes, or mostly to present clips of SpongeBob, where it says, SpongeBob will help frame the wild card broadcast with a pre-show and a halftime sneak peek. The SpongeBob SquarePants Countdown Special will be hosted by Von Miller from the Denver Broncos and will offer highlights on the title character's best sports moments. Jim Nantz and Tony Romo from CBS Sports will make live pre-kickoff appearances along with Eagle, Burleson, and Green. At halftime, Nickelodeon will preview the SpongeBob spin-off Camp Coral, which centers on SpongeBob's camp memories. The show will debut on the new Viacom CBS streaming outlet, Paramount+. So that's basically the big thing to make football a bit more kid-friendly. Or at least with what they're going to do with the January 10th wildcard game, is that they're going to spice up the commentary, they're going to present some little animated segments or animated graphics, and they're going to make the visuals a bit more enticing and more intriguing. That's going to be kid-oriented so that they could also be more invested onto sports or onto football specifically. And especially with the fact that they're going to add in like SpongeBob and All That, where even the commentary is going to be more kid-friendly, it's going to be more wacky, it's going to have a lot more of the Nickelodeon brand. Now, one important thing to note is that, of course, this is not the first time that we are seeing football trying to be more appealing towards kids. And especially other outlets have tried to go and try to make football more appealing to kids with some of their content. It even mentioned in this article that apparently ESPN tried to do that a few times in the past. And on top of that, there is also another thing I want to mention, that technically it's not just going to be Viacom CBS that's going to put in the effort to bring in new audiences to go and check out more football. There are other channels as well that they are going to go and do their best to try something new in terms of bringing in more people to go and watch football. Like, here's a good example. With NBC, what they are going to do is going to bring in their political expert, Steve Kornacki, and he's going to go and add in some football commentary onto Football Night in America and Sunday Night Football. So they want to go, and so that way NBC can bring in the political crowd who listen to Steve, like especially during the US elections, and they could go and watch football with him. But at the same time, you also got the Walt Disney Company, where it says here they're doing something a little bit unique, where it says Walt Disney has this season tested several mega casts that put different versions of a single football game on its various cable networks and ABC. So you can pretty much watch the same game, but you can also go and get completely different angles depending on which ABC channel or which Disney channel you are watching it from. And then you also got Freeform at the same time, where they are presenting wildcard games, but make that more appealing towards women, where they're going to go and get the female crowd to go and watch more football as well. So as you could tell with the NFL, they all have this major plan in order to go and bring in new audiences to go and watch football again. And in the case of Viacom CBS, they decided they're going to go and team up with Nickelodeon to go and bring in kids to go and check that out. And honestly, I do see the game plan here, no pun intended, but I do see the strategy of what they are trying to do. And like I said at the beginning, it really does seem like it is caused by the pandemic. And as you guys probably know, the pandemic really did make things go out of whack in terms of our watching habits, especially when it comes to sports. I don't know if you guys would watch sports or anything like that, or if you would even watch football, but you can understand that the watching habits of sports is a little bit more different because the scheduling really became out of whack, where a lot of different events got delayed, a lot of different tournaments ended up getting pushed back to either like the next year or like in several months afterwards. Like, I know there are several games that technically they did continue forward in 2020, stuff like hockey or golf or anything like that. Like, they were still able to do their rounds, but when they would happen is completely different. And not to mention, considering that it is the pandemic, they still had to go and follow the guidelines as well. That's why, like, I remember when I would watch the hockey games, there are barely any people that are even in the crowd. In fact, they probably closed off the whole stadiums just so the hockey players can just play their games, and that's it. Not to mention that you probably have heard numerous of reports when athletes would end up catching COVID and they had to go and isolate themselves. 2020 really was a time that really broke a lot of traditions and really broke the standards of how not only people would play their sports, but how people would consume their sports through television. And that's going to be a habit that might be a little bit hard to really go and come back. That's why NBC right now is focusing on getting brand new audiences, because right now it does seem like we are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to the pandemic. And so far, a vaccine could actually be coming soon, where sometime in 2021, or worst case in 2022, most people would already go and get the vaccine. But in the meantime, the way that they would go and watch their sports regularly, it's going to be a little bit different. And I'm sure for plenty of people, it would be very hard to really get into the habit. So that's why appeasing to new audiences is going to be key for the NFL in order for them to stay alive, or at least for their broadcasts to still be popular and to make stuff like the Super Bowl be highly relevant and be a major thing. So that's why they're going to do whatever they can in order to bring in that crowd, which, yeah, it does make sense why they would go and bring in Nickelodeon. It does make more sense than Cartoon Network because you also need some of that live action aspect of it as well, which is why it's not just elements of SpongeBob, but also you got that's why you also got all that joining in so they could go and make their little skits, make their little commentary with what's going on in sports. Now, will this actually work? I honestly don't know. That is going to be something that will be remain to, we will have to wait and see. But one thing I will say is that so far when it comes to SpongeBob fans, oh boy, they're not necessarily happy to hear about this because, let's just say their relationship with the NFL has very much soured in recent years, especially with what happened not long after the death of Steven Hillenburg, where millions of people have highly demanded that they would sing Sweet Sweet Victory from the episode Bang Geeks, but ultimately it just never happened. Even if we got like a little bit of a teaser, there was it ended up just happening where it's like this one little, this barely a few seconds of like a cartoon moment with SpongeBob and the gang, and that's it. So the NFL did get a significant amount of backlash. So appeasing the SpongeBob crowd to go and watch more NFL, that's going to be a lot trickier than trying to bring in kids. I'm just giving you all a little bit of a warning on that. But yeah, overall though, it does seem very intriguing with the strategy that they want to do, especially with teaming up with Nickelodeon to make at least the January 10th wildcard game to be a lot more kid-friendly. But again, is that going to work? That remains to be seen, and we'll just have to wait and see with how people are going to move forward if they still want to go and keep watching football, or especially watch football during these times. So you never know. Okay, now, with that said though, I would like to go into the chat wall, and I would like to ask you all, how do you feel about Nickelodeon teaming up with the NFL to make at least one broadcast be a lot more kid-friendly and be a lot more Nickelodeon branded? Do you think this is going to be something that would work? If you are an avid football fan, like if you're both an animation fan and a football fan, would you want to watch the wild card game on January 10th with all the Nickelodeon elements? Let me know what you think. Okay, so, let's see here. Oh, okay, we got a football fan at least. I would call myself a casual football fan. I enjoy watching it because it's just 300-pound giants slamming into each other, while is inherently cathartic, and I hate the Patriots, and I would like my team Dolphins to win the Super Bowl, but this is a weird thing for kids. I can't explain why this kind of rubs me the wrong way. Maybe because I hate the organization NFL itself. At least kids won't know about the Washington soon to go and change its name from Redskins. Yeah, that is true, and I mean, of course, this is that's an entire different subject altogether. And I mean, I'm not a football expert because honestly, I'm not really that interested in football. And since I'm a Canadian, I reserve my sports interests onto hockey. And I am aware that there have been a lot of drama when it comes to football, that there have been a lot of controversies, especially with the NFL. But that's kind of like a whole can of worms that that's going to require me to do a lot more research, maybe days worth of research before I would go and open that whole thing. So yeah, there is also that factor, and I if you do understand that a little more, then I do understand, then I get why you would feel like it seems kind of weird for the NFL to influence kids to watch their programming. So I got you there. Let's see now. Well, this is interesting. I get that youngins may enjoy sports, especially through films like Early Man, Space Jam, and maybe the Cars trilogy, but SpongeBob? The most sports-related SpongeBob media I can think of is just that one episode, and the cameo from LeBron James. It's not a bad idea, it's just kind of weird. Hell, during the halftime show, maybe they'll finally blast Sweet Victory. Yeah, you never know, man. You never know with what they can do. Let's see. Well, this could be a fine idea. how to see how it goes if they pick Nathan Janak. They will have the first gay NFL commentator in the USA. This sounds like a great idea as long as they don't go with the meme-style humor, but more witty-style commentary, but it could be a great idea. We will have to wait and see. Oh, buddy, I am so sorry to say, but at least in terms of this broadcast, nah. I'm not expecting any of the wittiness at all. Unfortunately, I think it might be a guarantee that they are going to go into the meme-oriented route of comedy, at least for the Nickelodeon broadcast, considering that the main target audience is going to be kids. So they are going to go into kid-style humor instead of going into something clever and witty. So yeah, they are going to do the memes, and considering that they are also going to include SpongeBob, you never know the amount of SpongeBob memes that they might also include in there. So yeah, I don't know. Oh boy. Yeah, like one thing, I'll just like make a prediction. Like it might sound stupid, but honestly, like I wouldn't be surprised if at the end, like whoever wins, they're gonna call them the Pog Champs. Like you know, like they're gonna be at the end and you'll see like the commentators going, it's like, well, I guess they are our little Pog Champs. Come here! You know, they might do that, unfortunately. Let's see now. What else do we got here? I'm really not that excited. While I can understand bringing in all that into the mix, I really do not trust the NFL and SpongeBob together. NFL and SpongeBob do not mix well together after that Super Bowl 53 halftime show, so overall, I'm not really that excited. Especially, this is further proving my point that the NFL would have to work a whole lot harder if they want to go and appease to the SpongeBob fans. Like, older SpongeBob fans, for sure, they are never going to forget that halftime incident that they did not get their sweet victory. So, from there, I think really they're just going to aim at kids, and they're just going to use SpongeBob as a tool to just reel them in, instead of actually having SpongeBob be prominent for this football game. Anyways, I'll go and read one more comment. Or, you know what? No, I'll go and read one more comment before we jump on to the next story. I'm not sure if this is a good idea, but I may be wrong. I'm not really into sports, but I would prefer hockey instead. Hey, my dude, man. High five! Or no, wait, no. Elbow. There we go. Let's see now. I always loved SpongeBob as a kid up until this day. I just hope that this doesn't go downward just like the incident in NFL. Also, they made a vaccine in the UK, and it's starting to ship around the world, so let's just pray the vaccines to come. Yeah, but then again, of course, like, we got a whole lot of different priorities. There are a lot more people that would get it before plenty of others, and especially, like, for someone like, I've already stated this before in the podcast, actually. I don't know if it was the last episode or the last two episodes, but I know for a fact that, like, I'm going to be, like, one of the last to get it, most likely, mainly because of the fact that I'm still young, I'm still healthy, and all that stuff. I know for a fact that my grandma is going to get it before me. So, yeah, for those of you who might be curious to know about how this wildcard game with Nickelodeon elements is going to be, keep in mind, it's going to be on January 10th. But honestly, I do find it intriguing that a lot of you are not really keen on this idea. So that I find to be pretty interesting, actually. It definitely is one of the great reasons why I do have the chat wall, like to have your commentary and your input as well. Like, it really does spice things up, especially for this podcast. You know what I mean? Okay, so moving on to the next story. What we are about to head into is going to be a bit more of a bonus miscellaneous. Now, this is an article that I have just recently discovered, but I personally feel like this is something that it very much is worth noting. I feel like more and more people should look into this article because it really does talk about a subject matter that we are seeing more and more commonly, but we never really had much of an analysis, like really the mindset of what's actually going on throughout all this, and very little explanations about this kind of phenomenon. And it has been going on for many years, even like before social media, but this is definitely a case where social media really did influence this a lot. And what I'm talking about is an article from The Hollywood Reporter called Kareem Abdul-Jabbar on the Hubris of Self-Destructing Stars. Now, in this article, of course, this is written by the basketball legend Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. But what he does is that in this article, he points out this interesting phenomenon of seeing these self-destructing celebrities where they used to be like on top of their game. They used to be highly praised and highly revered, but then suddenly they would make a few controversial tweets, or they would say some really stupid things, and then following afterwards, we would see their credibility, we would see their reputation completely come crashing down. Like, their reputation just suddenly became the Hindenburg. It was pretty much like the Hindenburg disaster, where like they were high and mighty in the skies, but then suddenly they sparked a fire and then they just came crashing down. And I know that we have seen a lot of celebrities that fell from grace throughout 2020. And some people might point out people like Johnny Depp, for example. But I'm not talking about Johnny Depp in this case. That's a completely different subject. I mean people whose whole controversy and whose downfall is really just caused by themselves. And in this article, they have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar actually brings up two very prominent examples. Number one being Rudy Giuliani. Like, you gotta keep in mind, I know that nowadays, a lot of people view Rudy Giuliani as, like, one of Donald Trump's minions. But there was a time when Rudy Giuliani was one of the most celebrated politicians in American history, where after 9/11, his heroic and courageous response to the 9/11 attacks earned him the title as America's mayor, where he was the New York City mayor, and the way that he handled the whole situation, everybody loved him, everybody praised him. But then, moving forward many years later, where he came back into full relevancy when he associated himself with Donald Trump, that reputation of America's mayor just came crumbling down so quick. And it's especially ever since the US elections of 2020, where his reputation just completely collapsed with incident after embarrassing incident, where it would start things off with the second Borat movie, where he was caught with his hands down his pants in front of an underage teenage girl, or at least what he thinks is an underage teenage girl. And then following afterwards, there was that whole press conference where, or actually, yeah, like the one straight after the US elections, where apparently he decided to do this whole press conference in front of this old shack, where pretty much like the official press to talk about Donald Trump's side of the elections and stuff like that is in this weird shack area because of like this mistake about where they would want to reserve at the Four Seasons and stuff like that. There was that whole incident. And then there was another press conference where Rudy Giuliani would speak, and we would see his hair dye just dripping on the side of his face. And then not long afterwards, we got Donald Trump tweeting that he tested positive for COVID. So it's just one stupid moment after another. And this is not even to mention about the most controversial thing that he has done recently that really destroyed his reputation and possibly his career afterwards, is spreading the lie about voter fraud, that even though there is factually no proof and no form of evidence whatsoever that Joe Biden won the election because of voter fraud, he would still go and spread that lie across the nation. And unfortunately, it does have some very serious consequences, where in this article, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar even noted that about 77% of Republicans actually unironically believe that Joe Biden won because of voter fraud. And it is heavily due to the cult-like mentality, in which he actually described it as the flat earther, anti-vaxxer cult mentality of thinking that someone in authority told me what I want to hear, so it must be true. But it isn't just Rudy Giuliani that he would go and talk about. Another very prominent example is J.K. Rowling. You might know J.K. Rowling as, like, the celebrated author who created Harry Potter, which would go on to become this multi-billion-dollar franchise with a whole set of movies, a stage play based on the books, a whole section at a theme park with a Wizarding World at Universal. And like basically turning Harry Potter into like one of the most celebrated franchises and turning J.K. Rowling as one of the most celebrated authors in modern times. But then recently, she started making these anti-trans tweets, and she was getting a bit of significant backlash for it. But then, more and more, the more backlash she would get, the more she would double down on her anti-trans statements. And it just kept on going and going and going, to the point that her reputation as a celebrated author just pretty much disappeared. And now, when you think about J.K. Rowling, a lot of people would first think that she is a bigot. She is a bigot who would go and spread anti-trans conspiracy and anti-trans propaganda, where she is hurting the trans community more so than actually helping them than anything. Even to the point that many of the celebrities associated with Harry Potter, like the stars of the Harry Potter movies, like Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, Rupert Grint, Eddie Redmayne, they all called J.K. Rowling out for her bigotry. And it's at the point where now J.K. Rowling is now like an icon of anti-trans bigotry, where it is only supported by anti-trans people. And anybody who would support her would be taken down just like J.K. Rowling. Like, there was at one point John Cleese tried to defend J.K. Rowling, and who was once known as one of the funniest people on earth, is now considered just a senile old grump that is so disconnected from the reality of our world right now. And those are just like the most prominent examples. He even lists down like plenty of other people as well that did receive that same treatment, in which they destroyed their own careers because of their own doing. Roseanne Barr, who once had like the most popular show and possibly the most highly rated TV revival ever, like she made that one racist rant, and now her career just like flat out died right there, to the point that the show had to go and continue without her with the Connors. And then you also got people like Jon Voight and James Woods, where they lean so much far, like they lean like so far right, to the point that it makes themselves look mentally ill. And even Jon Voight making a statement calling the political left Satan, and just spreading flat out conspiracy theories, where like they really drank deep in the Kool-Aid in terms of their support for Donald Trump and for nationalist conspiracies and ideologies. And then there was also, just recently actually, with one of the stars of Black Panther, Lolita Wright, in which she would go and actually share a link talking about the COVID vaccine. And it turns out to be this delusional conspiracy video about how the vaccine is evil, no one should take it. It's basically this anti-vaxxer COVID conspiracy video that is just filled with lies, that all the statements that is made there is completely debunked, and she received massive backlash for it, where she received a lot of hate, even to the point that a lot of people even demanded Marvel to continue Black Panther 2 without her, to take her out of the movie. And this is just one of the many, many examples that are out there. These are just the ones that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has listed in here. And the best way to describe it, I think really the best way to describe this whole article is this one great quote. If there is one thing that you should go and take away from the article, if you do read it, which I highly do recommend, is that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar actually states this. Many Americans imbue stars with political and social intelligence they just don't have. Great success in one field can lead to the delusion that all your thoughts are great. It doesn't help to be surrounded by fawning people whose job is to agree with everything you say. So basically what he is stating is that there is this big responsibility when it comes to having such a massive platform and having such recognition. And especially if you end up doing something that is very successful, that makes you very notable in life, and it earns you like millions or even billions of dollars, that sometimes like you think that you did some great success, then you would immediately think that you can't do anything wrong, that whatever you say is true, and that like nothing can go wrong with whatever you do. You can pretty much like you feel invincible, that you think that you can do whatever you want. But the truth is that sometimes or in this case, having a massive platform gives you a massive responsibility to go and do the right thing. And especially on the age of social media, people are not going to be afraid to call you out on your mistakes. And when you would go and do that mistake, that's kind of the big thing with all this, is that when you would do like a stupid mistake, especially if you do it publicly on the internet, then there are two things that you can do. You can either apologize and you can correct your mistakes so that you can go and move forward from there to show that, you know, you're not a perfect individual, but you can move on. But then at the same time, there is also the other route in which, unfortunately, a lot of these people, especially people like J.K. Rowling or Rudy Giuliani, would take, is that they would go and double down on their statements. They don't want to say that they're wrong because they think that they've been so highly successful in their life. There's no way they are the problem. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people with this kind of mentality where they think they're not the problem. It's literally everyone else. If things don't go their way, if they're getting negative reactions to your statements or to your actions, then they are the problem. It's not you. They don't think that they have the capacity of doing anything wrong. They think what they do or what they say is okay. It's all right. But they don't but the thing is that with their platform, they are what they don't realize is that they are massive influencers. They have millions of people who look up to them. And if they use that platform irresponsibly, then of course the backlash would be much bigger than some average Joe who would end up doing the same thing. So it really is a matter of how big someone's platform is. And you know the saying, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. So when you see someone with a massive platform, then afterwards, you can imagine how big the fall that actually can be. And of course, a lot of people would go and like highly note that in their history. And there is something else that I would like to go and talk about regarding this, is that sadly in this situation, it's not necessarily a whole black and white thing. You know, it's not necessarily a situation where the people who call, like the audience who calls out the people and causing a backlash, they're the good guys, and the people who make the stupid statements, they are the bad guys. It's not as black and white as you may think. Because one criticism that I would have on the other end is that this really is a situation where on the age of the internet, it is becoming harder and harder, and I would even say next to impossible for anybody to go and get redemption, to go and actually get a second chance. Because the internet, unfortunately, leans a lot more towards the negativity, and people are a lot more fascinated with negativity, and especially considering that everything is so quick and everything is happening in the now, and people need to they need to go and have this happen in the now. Usually, what happens is that usually they would have a first reaction, and they would think that they would know everything from there. So they would just go with whatever first reaction they would get and just set themselves off from there. And usually sometimes the strongest reactions can be out of negativity, out of anger, out of shock, out of distress, out of sadness, or anything like that. So unfortunately, that's why we do see on the internet, people would go and even exploit that. That's why we would have so many grifters on social media, especially on YouTube, where people would go and highly profit off of getting those reactions and people immediately jumping to conclusions onto that. And the reason why I state that this is a bit of a problem is because, like I said before, it makes it a lot harder for the person receiving the backlash in order to get a second chance, in order to get redemption. Or worst case of all is that it makes it harder for them to explain themselves, to give them an explanation, to give more context in terms of their statements and stuff like that. And I speak to this, and I speak this as someone who just recently actually received this kind of backlash. And trust me, it frickin' sucks. And worst of all, it's for something that, like, it was, again, completely taken out of context, and it was something from years ago. If you guys don't know, what happened on Twitter was that there was a moment where I was kind of like the target of the day on Twitter, or at least among the film and animation community. There was this one person who decided to go and just make a post just related to my review of Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs from like many years ago. And they would just make a comment saying like, this opinion is wrong and this person is loud and stupid. And little did anybody know, not even the person who made that post knew, that it would end up blowing up on social media, like really going viral, especially among the animation community. And it really did get a lot of those angry reactions, and of course getting a lot, like giving me a lot of backlash, where from there, like, not just animation fans and people in the animation community, but even people working in the industry, like animators who are working in prominent animation studios and winning a lot of prestigious awards, and even getting the attention of people who worked on Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, like Corey Yost, the character designer of the film, and even director Phil Lord. And from there, like, honestly, it left me in a position, like, I don't know what to do, because this is a scenario, if you guys know me, then you know this is a scenario that this was a problem I've already resolved. I've already, like, made my dues. I've already apologized for it. I've already received backlash in the past for my statements. I've acknowledged what I've done wrong in the past, and, like, I know that I've taken things too far with my comments on Sony Pictures Animation and stuff like that, and, like, I am trying to improve myself to go and move on from there. But unfortunately, with how things work on the internet, not many people know that. It's unfortunately a scenario where things really got taken out of context, and people can only react and just jump to conclusions with what they just see in front of them, with what they see on this one post on Twitter, and that's it. And unfortunately, the biggest consequence of them all, and this is something that even is mentioned in this article, is that it does leave some long-term consequences where there are people nowadays who view me negatively, even regarding this one post, where now there are people who hate my guts or think that I'm one of the worst reviewers ever because of the way that I was harsh on Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Or even worse, there are some people, like, I even saw this just recently on social media, where there are a few people that think that I have no credibility whatsoever because I don't like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Like, it doesn't matter about my tone or, like, my criticism specifically on it. Just because of the fact that I said Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs is bad, somehow that makes all my opinions invalid. And this is an opinion that unfortunately some people in the cartoon community and even amongst animators working in studios unfortunately do have right now, because they don't have all the context. And they don't really want to have the context anyways, because they value more their emotions more so than listening to any reason or to understand the full scenario of the context of, like, what is actually happening. Like, some people, unfortunately, people value their own anger more so than they do, and their own negative emotions more so than they do in terms of, like, giving a second chance and stuff like that. And it really does suck. And yeah, it will have long-term consequences where people will only think about the negative aspects, disregarding any of the great things that you might have done. And this is especially the case with what this article actually talked about here, where Kareem Abdul-Jabbar actually does point out that with this article, with what happened to people like Rudy Giuliani, J.K. Rowling, John Cleese, and many, many more, this is unfortunately going to be something that will follow them for the rest of their lives, regardless of what they have done nowadays. Like, yeah, There have been great things that Rudy Giuliani has done, especially with how he reacted with 9/11 and what got him the title of America's mayor. But nowadays, the first thing people are going to think about Rudy Giuliani is being the delusional lawyer of Donald Trump. And this is also the case with J.K. Rowling. Yeah, she created one of the most renowned and most beloved franchises of all time with Harry Potter. But people are going to forget that, and they'll first think about her as like this anti-trans conspiracy theorist. And like, even if you do, and unfortunately, even if you would try to do, even if you would put in the effort to actually make yourself, reputable again, even if you do acknowledge what you have done is wrong, that, like, you're not going to win everyone's hearts. Like, not everyone would want to be willing and listen. Sometimes people just want to hate you for life, and that's it. And they'll find every little means for it. Rather it be just like, rather it be like Rudy Giuliani spreading a very dangerous conspiracy theory that could actually harm democracy, or like even someone like me who just doesn't like what is essentially just a movie geared towards kids, and that's it. But this is not, so yeah, like basically what I want to say is that this is a scenario that isn't necessarily black and white, and with the way that that people react on social media is a little too immediate and very harsh, and it makes it next to impossible for anyone to go and get a second chance, even if they try to put in the effort to do so. But it still doesn't change that it is justifiable for these celebrities to go and get a backlash, and especially with the fact that they would go and pin the blame on cancel culture instead of accepting responsibility. And I think more and more nowadays, this is why we are seeing cancel culture as something that is known to be relevant. Because cancel culture, the truth is, it doesn't exist. There's no such thing as cancel culture. Really, what it is, it's just an excuse for people to go and avoid consequences to their actions. They want to fabricate something in order to pin the blame on something else rather than on themselves. So that's why I really want to go and make this statement. I find this to be a beautifully crafted article. And I highly recommend you guys go and read this article, because it really is a fascinating commentary on how, like, these people with a massive platform, how they end up destroying themselves. So again, go look up on The Hollywood Reporter, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar on the hubris of self-destructing stars. And it's a very fascinating article to go and read, to look into and understand why is it that these celebrities don't want to face consequences to their actions, even when they are obviously wrong. And yes, and also consider about the factor that, yes, while it is justifiable, while they would get backlash, there is also criticism to the backlash itself, where people can be way too harsh, way too fast, and sometimes they can really blow things out of proportion, regardless of of how big the stupid thing can be, or how harmful the stupid comment could be. I know it's kind of a mouthful here, but it really is something that did fascinate me, and I feel like there's just so much to go and talk about regarding this subject. Hopefully I didn't bore you guys too much with this, but I know this isn't necessarily cartoon related, but it's just one of those things that I personally feel very fascinated with this kind. I just feel very fascinated with this kind of subject as someone who has dealt with this kind of experience in a bit of a different way. And it does teach you a lot about the responsibilities of having a massive platform. It's like, why is it important that you need to be careful, or like more than ever, if you do have if you are a public figure, it is important that you use your platform responsibly and not use it for hate or for spreading conspiracy theories and stuff like that. Okay, so with that said, I would like to go into the chat wall, and I would like to ask you all, what do you think about all this? I know this is kind of a major subject to go and talk about, but I am curious about what you all might think about this. Okay. Let's see now. This article was definitely an eye-opener. This really does show how high and mighty people can make. One stupid move can destroy your reputation. Two examples I can think of are Butch Hartman, when he was a success with Fairly Odd Parents and Danny Phantom, and then the Oaxis controversy happened, or Doug Walker, when he was beloved as the nostalgia critic, but then Change the Channel happened and destroyed his reputation. Exactly, and I mean, technically some people could say that technically those people aren't necessarily canceled per se, but the way that they are being viewed by the public is not as strong or is not as viewed highly as they once were. Like, definitely with Butch Hartman, people no longer view him as the creator of Danny Phantom or Fairly Odd Parents. Now he's just like now they just view him as like some douchey grifter that's heavily trying to promote the fact that he's like this good-hearted Christian and stuff like that. Or even Doug Walker nowadays, like, he's still doing the nostalgia critic, but now he like the show, and in some ways Doug Walker himself is often viewed more as an egomaniac than one of the most influential people on the internet. So those are also other great examples. There was one that I just saw that popped up early that I find it to be fascinating. Let's see now. I respectfully disagree about cancel culture not existing, even if the people who complain about it the loudest are the worst. I could speak from my personal experience. Gen Z has this unfortunate habit of using canceling as an excuse for harassment, such as what happened to Charlie D'Amelio, or that one Twitch user that people tried to cancel for speaking Spanish in Mexico. Otherwise, you're pretty on point. Okay, I guess maybe it's not, maybe like I said it wrong when I said cancel culture doesn't exist, but the way that people are using canceling is completely wrong. Like, the subject of canceling, it kind of goes both ways on how it can be, how it's mostly used in the wrong hands. I think that's the best way. Instead of, like, I'll go and correct myself right now. Instead of saying that cancel culture doesn't exist, the grand majority of people who use the term canceling are in the wrong. Rather it be highly prominent people like J.K. Rowling or Rudy Giuliani or Donald Trump, when they would say cancel culture, they're obviously using it as an excuse to pin something else to blame other than themselves. And then there was also that factor that there are some audiences or some people with bad intentions who are audiences that they want to go and they want to use the power of canceling to silence voices and to shut people up, basically. And that's unfortunately the case. Like, a lot of my detractors, basically it's just that. Like, outside of the politics, there are a lot of people who really are desperate to try to cancel me because they want to try to silence my opinions because they disagree with them. Rather it would be things like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs is a bad movie, or that Frozen is a good film, or that Illumination is actually a good animation studio that can provide some pretty solid and entertaining movies. Some people hate that. Some people hate the fact that I state that, and they want to do everything in their power to try to cancel me. So yeah, you do bring up a good point, and I just want to go and make that clarification. So hopefully you do get what I mean now. Let's see now. Let's see. The internet is home to a lot of very dangerous individuals if you don't exercise care. Paranoia and distrust are especially fueled by potentially harmful rhetorics from popular people or users such as Mr. Enter, Lily Orchard, Computing Forever, and of course, The Quartering. Yeah, you do definitely, yeah, like in the case of internet personalities, yeah, there are definitely plenty of examples of people who try to either use the excuse of cancel culture to pin their blames on something else other than themselves, or trying to use the power of cancel culture to attack others and try to silence other people's voices. Let's see. I'm not gonna lie, when you led into this story, I thought you were gonna talk about Tom Cruise chewing people out for not wearing masks. But this article is one I could definitely agree on. I don't have a lot to say, but as for the Cloudy controversy, I will say that it's something that no animation critic should go through, except maybe Mr. Enter, and that's a really big maybe. Also, you forgot to bring up something up when talking about Rudy Giuliani. That shack he held at the press conference. No. I did mention that. It's like that Four Seasons mistake where he thought he would be at a Four Seasons hotel, but he ended up in some Four Seasons shack to make an official press conference talking about Donald Trump losing the election. I know. I mentioned that, dude. No. I made that statement. Let's see now. What else do we got here? I felt the same way. I felt the same with Kareem saying about damaging careers, but I felt it can also it can happen to the gaming community with gaming studios that can harm their reputation, with examples as recently just as CD Projekt K with Cyberpunk 2077 for being a complete mess and absolutely broken on the PS4 and Xbox One, and most notably is Nintendo with their takedowns for the Smash Melee and Smash Ultimate and Splatoon tournaments that did damage quite a bit of their reputation despite making great games. Exactly, dude. That's another great example, and there are plenty of other examples, especially in the gaming community as well. Another one that I would like to mention is Naughty Dog as well. That's another studio that fell from grace. Once like one of the most beloved gaming studios that made like Jak and Daxter and the original Crash Bandicoot games, but especially with what happened after the making of The Last of Us Part 2, man, people did not like the experience of how they treated their employees when making that game. So that's another example right there. Let's see now. What else do we have here? No, I already talked about you. Fame is an elusive thing here today. Fame is an elusive thing. Excuse me, it's just the way that you wrote it is just a little bit weird. I'll redo that. Fame is an elusive thing. Here today, gone tomorrow. The fickle, shallow mob raises its heroes to the pinnacle of approval today and hurls them into oblivion tomorrow at the slightest whim. Cheers today, hisses tomorrow. Utter forgetfulness in a few months. That's unfortunately the reality of fame, really. Sometimes it's not a beautiful thing to have. Like, some people want to be major stars, but unless you know how to really handle the situation, it's just bad. All right, let's see. I'll go and read one more comment before we jump into the next thing here. Let's see. I find this article to be interesting. It's a shame that many once beloved celebrities like J.K. Rowling and Rudy Giuliani that used to have great reputations but only to destroy themselves when they made dangerous conspiracy theories and racism at the same time. People like celebrities need to learn what words they say before they speak before destroying themselves. Otherwise, it will be too late. Also, sorry about what you went through on Twitter, so I hope things will be better in 2021. Oh boy. Well, honestly, I'm not gonna lie. This whole thing here, I was a bit hesitant to try to share this piece in the podcast, but this actually turned out to be much better than I thought. Actually, like it turned out to be a very fascinating discussion here. Honestly, it's it turned out to be great, and hopefully we will learn a very strong lesson from this. So who knew that this little piece right over here actually turned out to be the juiciest and most thoughtful part of the episode of the podcast? Okay, so now with our next story that we got here, we're going to be talking about other popular figures, but on their future, actually. Now, these are some pretty familiar names who had some top positions at some beloved companies, but now they are thinking about their future and want to climb a little bit a little bit higher in terms of the amount of power that they do have. And I don't know what kind of reactions you may have with this, but let's go ahead and actually talk about what's going on with Bob Iger. Yes, believe it or not, people, Bob Iger, he was toying with this idea, he was considering it, but now it seems like Bob Iger is currently one of the top people in consideration to actually have an ambassador job for President-elect Joe Biden, where he might actually end up becoming the U.S. ambassador for either China or the UK. Now, in the past, when Bob Iger was the CEO of Disney, he was considering maybe he could actually go and, work for Joe Biden and actually have a position to work as a U.S. ambassador, especially for China. But now, this might actually slowly but surely become a reality, or at least it is getting close to becoming a reality. Now, keep in mind, it's not going to be something that will be immediate straight after Joe Biden becomes president. He still needs to go and pick a few people. And also, Bob Iger still has his contract with Disney, where he is still staying in the board, and he is still staying as an executive chairman, but his contract would end at the end of next year. At the end of December 31st, 2021, that's when his contract with Disney ends, and that's when he would go and move on to something else. And that could actually be the case where he could work as a U.S. ambassador for Joe Biden. However, there are some other Disney people, or people associated with the Walt Disney Company, that might be in consideration for a job as an ambassador. One of these people is actually a very prominent donor for the Democratic Party. This man was very noteworthy to be one of the biggest cheerleaders for the Democratic Party for a long time, on top of also being the founder of DreamWorks Animation and the founder of the Quibi streaming service, Jeffery Katzenberg. Yes, it is true. Jeffery Katzenberg is also in consideration for an ambassador job. And then there is also Matt Walden, who is actually the husband of Walt Disney Television chairman Dana Walden, is also being in consideration for an ambassador job for some European country. We don't know which one, but maybe for a European country somewhere. And the reason why Matt Walden is actually selected, well, I guess some people could say it's a little bit of nepotism, considering that Matt Walden is actually good buddies with Douglas Emhoff, who is the husband of Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. And so far, that seems to be the big thing right now, is that slowly but surely we could see the reality where in Bob Iger's future, he can actually transition from being the chairman of Disney to being a U.S. ambassador. And a lot of analysts are stating that there is a stronger chance that he could be an ambassador for the UK, for China, than in the UK. And I just want to go and start things off with this little statement that honestly, in the case of Bob Iger, I kind of see why he would want to be an ambassador of China. I get that, and he might actually have a little bit of the qualities in order to do so. He might actually, he actually does have some experience with working with China, and he can find ways in order to make a good relationship with China for the United States, especially with the fact that he is in close ties with the country, especially with Shanghai Disneyland, which did turn out to be a major hit. I mean, some people could debate that technically there is also Hong Kong Disneyland, but then again, that's Hong Kong. That's a completely different story. They're not necessarily associated with China. I mean, especially with the whole talks about the Mulan controversy and stuff like that, you might know what I'm talking about. But Anyways, I do kind of see why Bob Iger would be interested in that position, because he can probably do a good job, and he already has a strong relationship with China, including a good solid relationship with the president of China, I believe it's the president of China, Xi Jinping. So he might have some qualifications. However, one thing that I do want to say is that I don't want this to happen. Okay? I don't want any of these people to happen. Not Matt Walden. I don't want Matt Walden. Is it Matt Walden? Yeah. I don't want Matt Walden. I don't want Bob Iger. And I certainly don't freaking want Jeffrey Katzenberg be involved in the freaking politics. Because I think I could speak for everyone, or at least like every smart person out there, that honestly, I'm just sick and tired of these business executives who think that they could just mosey on up into the world of politics. You know, I'm just sick and tired of that. Like, ever since Donald Trump entered the scene, can we just have a break from having random business executives work into the realm of politics where they end up getting more power? Can we just not have that? Can we just have a break? Can we leave the political work to the politicians, and that's it? Honestly, I'm just sick and tired of it, and I can speak as a Canadian that we Canadians have been completely sick and tired of that since the very beginning of Donald Trump's presidency. And there was actually at one point that there was one Canadian business executive that did try to become the Prime Minister of Canada, or try to lead one of the political parties, but like it just got shot down the water. Like, we know what they were trying to do, and we immediately said no. And if you guys don't, and believe it or not, you might actually know who this individual is. It might sound crazy, but this is actually true. I just want to know, I want to ask the chat wall, how many of you all have actually seen Shark Tank? Do you guys watch Shark Tank? Comment if you have seen Shark Tank. Let me know. Let me know in the chat wall. Let's see. Do we have people? Let's see. No. Oh crap. Okay. People. Fudge nabbit. Okay. Some people. Okay. Most people say no. Okay. But the thing. Okay. So I'll try to explain a little bit more. Okay. So in Shark Tank, there is one of the sharks is Kevin O'Leary, who is a prominent businessman and a very successful and wealthy businessman. Well, believe it or not, Kevin O'Leary at one point, just like a few years ago, tried to run to become the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. He tried to do that. Like, he tried campaigning, he got involved with a lot of press conferences, a lot of debates. He tried so hard in order to become the Prime Minister of Canada. But, or like try to be the Conservative leader of Canada to fight against Justin Trudeau in order to become Prime Minister. But immediately afterwards, yep, there we go. Like, some people might know what I'm talking about. He is also known as Mr. Wonderful. He wanted to, like, there was at one point, he tried to be Prime Minister. He tried to run to become the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, tried to do exactly what Trump did, and it didn't work out. Even the Canadian Conservatives saw right through him, like, yeah, we know what you're doing. It ain't gonna happen. GTFO. And from there, I guess he just went back to Shark Tank, and also, like, right now he's dealing with all the legal troubles because of the controversy that happened, in which he crashed his boat onto another boat, which ended up, unfortunately, killing a few people, and now he has to pay for the damages and stuff like that. But that's kind of another story. But yeah, like, I'm just saying here that I'm just sick and tired of all the, I'm tired of, like, these celebrities, and I'm tired of all these executives thinking that they could just enter into the realm of politics. Now, I am not saying that they should stop. I'm not saying that celebrities should stop talking about politics. That is their right to do so. That's a part of freedom of speech. That's perfectly fine if they want to add their comments in what's happening in terms of social issues, or how politicians are doing with their jobs and stuff like that. That I can that is perfectly fine. That I can understand. It's their right to do so. That's their freedom of speech. And anybody who says otherwise, anybody who says celebrities or public people should not talk about politics, those are people who hate the freedom of speech. Those are the people who are against the First Amendment. I'm just saying that right there. What I am saying is that I am tired of seeing all these big name celebrity people and all these big name celebrity executives thinking that they could just enter into the realm of politics, that they could just magically shift their careers because they have tons of money from going to the thing that made them famous to entering in the realm of politics. That, for me, just feels like it makes no sense. And it kind of goes back to what Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has stated in that article, where he would say that pretty much the mentality of great success in one field can lead to the delusion that all your thoughts are great, which is why you would see, not just, this isn't something that happened just recently. It's not just, Donald Trump, per se, or even Bob Iger, but this has happened many times before, including, Ronald Reagan as well is another example of a celebrity, that became, the United States president, where, he was revered in the past, but nowadays, we look back at his actions, and it seems like he has done a lot more harm to the United States, more so than he has done good. But in this case here, I don't know, honestly, no, man. And especially, frickin' Jeffrey, man. Hell no. Honestly, he has done a lot of stupid decisions and a lot of controversial decisions back when he was, an executive, whether it be at Disney and sometimes at DreamWorks Animation. I mean, he has done some great things, but at the same time, he's also done a lot of really stupid decisions. And I don't think this is a guy, and honestly, I'm just stating this right now. I don't think the guy who has founded and made Quibi should be running for an ambassador office. I don't think he should be getting into politics. I think Quibi is a prominent example to say, I'm sorry, dude, but you ain't gonna be running jack all in here. If you end up if you're gonna run things like you did with Quibi, you're gonna be hopeless, man. Honestly, with Jeffrey's qualifications, honestly, with what happened with Quibi, he seems more fitting to work for the Trump administration more so than for Joe Biden. So honestly, this is just to say that this could be a thing happening, and I do get Bob Iger's perspective, but just for once, can we have a break of big name executives and big name celebrities going into the field of politics? Can we just leave the political work to the politicians? That's all I ask. It's just that one little thing. Can it just be that? Seriously, man. Okay, so with all that said, I would like to go into the chat wall, and I would like to go and ask you all, how do you feel about Bob Iger possibly becoming the U.S. ambassador of China? Do you guys think it's a great idea? Do you think Bob Iger would do an amazing job at it? Or do you not support this idea and you just want a politician to work as an ambassador job, as an ambassador instead of many of these executives? Let me know what you all think. Okay, let's see now. I seriously thought Bob Iger was kidding when he said he wanted to get into politics, but after this, I'm just sick and tired of all these business executives trying to get into politics. Even if Iger being one and could have an intriguing outcome. Also, you didn't let me finish on my last comment. Yes, you brought up the fact that Giuliani hosted a press conference at a shack, but not the fact that it's next to a dildo shop. Oh, okay, I apologize for that, dude. I am so sorry. That is also true. That is true that he made his press conference next to a dildo shop. Yeah, that's a real thing. And the sad thing is that dildo shop has a lot more integrity than anyone associated with Donald Trump. All right, so let's see. Celebrity/businessman and politics do not mix. A country is not a business or a spot to attain fame. It's a place to keep a country functioning, and these people have no clue how to do that. And I just need to go and say this right now. Some people might hate me for this, but honestly, this is the problem with capitalism. This is honestly the mentality of capitalism, thinking that the more money you have, the more power you should also have, and the more reason that you should be running this, the more reason you should be running the country. The problem is, really, this is the problem with capitalism, is that people think that more money means more power, which is, yeah, in a capitalist world, that is true, but it also causes some very serious problems as well. And the Trump administration is the perfect example of that. So honestly, that, and it really is the consequence, how capitalism can really mess you up psychologically, thinking that you can thinking that you could do anything you want just because you make a lot of money. So honestly, I just feel like that's kind of the big issue here. It's just that this is also a serious capitalist problem. Let's see what we got here. What else? This is just weird. So weird, it's one thing, so weird that it's one thing to get a celebrity like Bill Gates running for president, but Bob Iger, especially Jeffery Katzenberg, and how he handled the Queeby situation, both of these guys are best to run the country, both of these guys are not the best to run this country at all. They shouldn't even get a small secretary job trying to run for mayor. First before you run for president, and that's what I was thinking. Arnold Schwarzenegger did, and it worked well for him. Okay, so that is true. Like, maybe there are gonna be some people that will bring up some examples. Like, it's more of a general thing that usually celebrities and businessmen and politics don't mix. Like, of course, there are gonna be some people that will note about the work done by Arnold Schwarzenegger and how he was a pretty, and a lot of people view him positively as when he was governor of California. So that might be a case. And yeah, I'm not saying there are no exceptions. Like, there could be some, but generally they just don't work out well. Let's see now. Who else do we got? Do we have other comments? Okay, we got this one. Why? Just why? While I can understand why Bob Iger would do this, isn't he already powerful enough? As for Jeffery Katzenberg, seriously, why is he even trying anymore? I think Queeby was the final nail in the coffin. To quote Filthy Frank, it's time to stop. Yes. Yeah, it's just, money can make you do some crazy things. Money can really, there are very few things in life that can really damage your mentality more so than money. And the more you have, the more insane you become. Let's see. I'll read one more comment before we go into our final story. Let's see here. I may not like Bob Iger for buying too many studios, but I don't think he should run for the ambassador of China. For Katzenberg, hell no. He's done so much more things that are worse than it has to be. Queeby, anyone? I think Biden should pick someone else that has a lot of politics experience than a celebrity. Trust me, having a celebrity or a former celebrity like Trump to run an office don't always work. Exactly, dude. Okay, yeah. So I think most of us can pretty much agree that when it comes to Bob Iger, yeah, it just doesn't work out. So honestly, we'll see who Joe Biden ultimately picks, but hopefully it will be someone who is more than qualified for that respectable ambassador job. All right, it is time that we shall go on to the grand finale. And a lot of people are very much anticipated for this moment. Oh man, this was something that just happened yesterday, and this is actually regarding Nintendo. Now, I've already discussed a little bit before about the controversies with Nintendo and how they've been canceling a lot of fan tournament events, and they have received a lot of backlash. Like, a lot of people are still very upset with Nintendo as a corporation, where they have slowly but surely been morphing into becoming the next EA. But at the same time, a lot of people are also celebrating Nintendo, but for other reasons. Rather it be with Masahiro Sakurai announcing the details regarding Sephiroth, and technically being released right now if you have done the Sephiroth challenge. I know I have. I managed to beat Sephiroth on very hard in less than 30 minutes. The footstool jump is an amazing thing, folks. But what I want to talk about is something much bigger. Something far more anticipated. Something that is not even a video game, actually. It's regarding a Nintendo Direct that Nintendo has actually done, where they would go and discuss about their next biggest project that they have done. The next biggest thing that they have made since the Nintendo Switch, Super Nintendo World. Yes, in a special 15-minute Nintendo Direct, Shigeru Miyamoto... is it Shigeru Miyamoto? Yes, okay, sorry. Shigeru Miyamoto would go and fully present the world of Super Nintendo World, which is going to be a brand new section that is going to be opening very soon at Universal Studios Japan. And he also announced that it's also going to be open in several other places as well, like Universal Studios Hollywood, Universal Studios Orlando, and also Universal Studios Singapore. The release dates of those have not been revealed just yet, and a lot of their productions have been heavily delayed due to COVID. But we know that the plans to have them appear in those theme parks, that's going to happen soon. But in here, however, Shigeru Miyamoto would go and discuss about the overworld of Super Nintendo World. He would only talk about the area, and amazingly enough, he has yet to even show us a preview of any of the rides at all. So he didn't even discuss about either Yoshi's Adventure, the Yoshi ride that's going to be in the parks, or even the highly anticipated Mario Kart ride. He was mainly just talking about what has been happening, or what's going to be going on around the Super Nintendo World area. And in there, it's actually going to be, in a way, a whole ride in itself, where it's going to be this entire interactive and highly immersive area, where Shigeru Miyamoto, he would start things off by talking about, he would go into the warp pipe, where the first thing you will enter is, hold on a sec, let me go and refresh just in case, just to make this thing wake up again. Yes, and the first thing he would talk about is that you would enter into this warp pipe where you travel, the first thing you do is you travel inside the world, where you're teleported from the world of Universal Studios Japan onto Super Mario World. And the first thing you enter into is in Princess Peach's castle, and it's actually a tribute to Super Mario 64, where you even have some of the paintings that are hung up, which is honestly really awesome and a very nice touch. And that's just like when you enter in. And then you go into Super Mario World, in which Shigeru Miyamoto would discuss about the interactivity, where if you get these power bracelets, then that's when you can go and you can actually collect some special digital elements that are all around. Like, you can actually hit some power blocks and you can actually get some coins. And you can actually walk around the area and you might find like some special keys, for example. There's this one area right here. Yeah, apparently, like, he presented this little area where it's kind of like a mini game, where, like, you would see this, here, let me go and play this just for a little bit, where, like, you'll see the shell, it's moving around, and you gotta hit the POW block in order to go and hit it right in the center, where it would go up, and it would hit that POW block, hitting the Koopa, and you actually go get the key coin. So, like, there are those little activities that you would see around. And also another thing that Shigeru Miyamoto has revealed is that apparently there's also going to be an underground level where you can actually walk around and you can enter into this little cave where you can hit power blocks and you can actually meet up with some bombs. And funny enough, there's even like this little section where, like, you walk around and then suddenly you become tiny. It's like you ingested a mini mushroom and you become small, and now everything has become giant, which honestly I find really, really awesome. But then at the same time, he would also discuss about the gift shop, in which he talks about a place called the 1-Up Factory, where you can actually buy some exclusive Super Nintendo World merchandise. And he even talked about the restaurant as well, which is called Kinopio's Cafe, which is a restaurant that is entirely run by toads. in which you go in there, you eat some grub, and at the same time, you also see some special windows where you see the toads at work, working in the kitchen, just making your food. And it's actually run by this Chef Toad that actually does talk to the guests while they're waiting in line. Like, here, let me just give you a little preview of it, of just Chef Toad.
Oh, konnichiwa. Hi.
So yeah, like you'll have those little experience going on, like where you would eat at the cafe, you know, a very nice like wood themed environment, of course, like with a lot of Nintendo elements. And like I said before, like you can also look through the windows and you see all the toads working, all the toads being chefs and stuff. It's really adorable. And on top of that, at the end, he even gave a little bit of a preview of what's inside Bowser's Castle, which is going to be the home of the Mario Kart ride in there. And he only showed a little preview of like what's in the queue, where he showed like the staircase that has the giant statue of Bowser, even showing replicas of like something I find to be really cool is that right here, you see all the trophies that you can earn in Mario Kart. Like you see the Mushroom Cup, you see the Star Cup, the Flower Cup, the Green Shell Cup, the Banana Cup, the Lightning Cup, the Crown Cup, the Leaf Cup, the Star Cup, all these cups, and they're all in real life, which is like absolutely amazing to see. And then of course, like you got the big one right over here, which is exclusively for the Universal Studios Japan, or in Universal Studios, the Universal Cup, in which right next to it, you also got a letter that is an invitation from Bowser, in which apparently there is also a little storyline in the Mario Kart ride, where apparently this is actually about Bowser, where he actually created a special cart that is specifically made to take down Mario. It's a cart where it's for sure Bowser would win and Mario would lose. And he would invite everyone, including the whole Mario gang, and for all the guests to come in and ride with Bowser, on top of previewing that it is also going to be all in augmented reality. Not just virtual reality, but full-on augmented reality. So, like I said before, he did not show any single ride that's going to be happening in there, but he did show a little bit of a preview of what's going to be within the world of Super Nintendo World, not even revealing all the secrets. Like he even mentioned, like, there are some things that he's not going to reveal immediately. He's going to keep it a surprise for the guests, but there's going to be a lot more to come. So this is just a taste of what's going to be within the world of Super Nintendo World. And I gotta say, as a Nintendo fan, as a Mario fan, and as a theme park fan, this looks like a freaking dream come true. It looks amazing, and I gotta say, I feel like it is absolutely clever what they are doing. Because you gotta keep in mind about something. When it comes to Super Nintendo World, regardless of where it's going to be open, it is going to be guaranteed that there are going to be people who are so hyped about it, and the places will be jam-packed. Like, one thing that I can say is going to be impossible, or at least next to impossible, is that you can enter into Nintendo World and go straight into the Mario Kart ride. That ain't gonna happen. There's gonna be like hours worth of lineups. But what's really clever is that in the meantime, while you could wait or like get some kind of fast pass system to wait for your turn to get into the Mario Kart ride, you can actually go and explore the world. There's like so much to do. Like I said before, like the whole area is kind of like a ride in itself, where you can get these wrist straps and you can interact with the world with the world, where you can actually collect coins, where you can get stuff. I don't think Shigeru Miyamoto mentioned of like what you can do with those coins. He didn't mention like the kind of special prizes that you could get, or like what you can do to accumulate them. But he did mention that, like, it is an activity that you can do. And amazingly also, it is some, like, on top of that, it's also something that you can do where you can actually go home and you could still have those interactivities. Like, you can actually still play the interactive games at home. A little bit in the same way the Amiibo works for the Nintendo Switch and for the 3DS and stuff like that. So he did mention that you can also, like, technically the fun of Super Nintendo World doesn't just stop at Universal Studios. You can also bring it at home with you. And honestly, like I said before, it is very clever with what they are doing, with the fact that they are making it so interactive that there's just so much to do, and it's not just waiting for, like, to go in one ride or another and stuff like that, that there is, you know, there is plenty of things that you could just go and try out, and the amount of detail that you see in this, and especially, like, the amount of, like, living animatronics that you see, like all the piranha, like you see all the different piranha plants that are just moving around, like you see the Koopas walking, like you also see like the Goombas just stacked together. Like, that's just great. It's like, it really is one of those places where they really paid attention to close detail in order to create this very immersive world and take this cartoony and fantasy-like place like the Mario games and really bring them to life in an environment where it feels like it can be real. And not just that, but also, like, even when it's at night, it can look beautiful as well with all the different POW blocks, you know, like coming to life. It's just, honestly, it just looks great overall. For me, honestly, I just feel massively hyped up for this. Like, I know, like, one of the, like, it, like, I like, this is an improbability, but I know that once this pandemic is over, once that we are free from doing any of the CDC guidelines where we no longer have to wear masks or practice social distancing or anything like that, one of the first things I would love to do, or that at least now it's officially on my bucket list, I want to go to Super Nintendo World. I want to see what this is all about. Like, maybe I might not go ever to Super Nintendo World in Japan. I might end up going to the one in either Hollywood or in Florida. But still, I want to be in this immersive world. It just looks absolutely incredible. It looks so beautiful. And again, the amazing thing about this Nintendo Direct is that Shigeru Miyamoto barely showed us the main attractions. This is just the overworld. This is just the environment. This is just the little things you do before even getting into the ride in the first place. That's the amazing thing. Already my mind is blown and I have yet to see, like, what it can actually do. Oh my god, honestly, it's just exciting to just look at. Honestly, I can't wait to see what more this could have in store, but already I just find it to be so beautiful. I want to collect a lot, I want to go in a shopping spree at the shop. I want to eat at the restaurant. I want to spend a whole day just on Super Nintendo World alone. It looks that amazing. So yeah, overall, I just feel like it is, like, I'm just blown away so far with what they are presenting, and I can't wait for the day that this thing opens. I mean, technically in Japan it is going to be opening soon. I believe that Miyamoto stated, when was it again? When was it? It's like in February, I believe. He stated that on February 4th. I think so. Yeah. Was it here at the end or something like that? But I know that he stated that it's somewhere in February of 2021 that we are going to be going, that he stated in February of 2021 that Super Nintendo World is going to open, and I'm all in for it. I am so excited to see this happening. And I know someone mentioned that he didn't even mention the Donkey Kong Country area, which is mind-blowing. But honestly, I don't know if they have that in Japan, though. Like, looking into the overworld so far, like, with what they have built, I don't know if there is going to be the Donkey Kong ride, or at least I don't know if it's going to be there on opening day in Universal Studios Japan. I am aware of its existence, but I don't know if that's going to be out at the same time as Nintendo World's opening. But still, though, honestly, this looks amazing. I want to be there. It looks so beautiful. It's a combination of a lot of my loves and passions. And honestly, I just can't wait. So, again, it's on February 2021 that it will be opening. And, oh my god, it's just... It's honestly just amazing. I just can't wait, honestly. Okay, so with that said, I would like to go into the chat wall, and I want to ask you all, what are your thoughts so far on the Nintendo Direct presentation of Super Nintendo World? Is this something you guys would be interested in checking out? Are you excited for it? Are you a bit disappointed? Do you have any criticisms? Let me know what you all think. Let's see. As you said, this is like a dream come true. The details, the animatronics, the technology, and the interactivity is just amazing, and I just wish to travel to Japan so I could go to Super Nintendo World. Then I realized that I do not speak and understand Japanese. I would probably go to Super Nintendo World in Orlando since I was there once. Then I realized that I have a fear of flying. A fear of flying. I might travel there with a family member to feel safe. Yeah, exactly. You know, like, if you're planning to go into the American versions, like, there's no rush, there's no hurry or anything like that. You just, you know, all you have to do is just, wait a little bit, you know? Like, you can have the patience, and then, like, you could just plan up. Alright, let's see now. This looks amazing. I want to go there so bad, like it is Disneyland. I know it would also open to the US as well, but as of right now, things might be a little bit complicated. Once when the pandemic around the world can calm down, I got to go to that land to ride the rides and burn my money on the merch there or bust. Either in Japan or even here in the United States, if my patience can handle. That, or worst case scenario, there's always the other option. Technically, it is opening in Shanghai. You could do that as well. Let's see now. What else do we have here? This is just amazing. My mouth jaw dropped after the Direct with my favorite being the Mario Kart ride. The overall park looks like it came from the actual games, and I'm excited to go to it when this comes out in California. But one thing that would make it unbelievable is if a Crash Bandicoot mascot costume visits the park and try to mock it like in the old commercials. Considering he was at the Universal Studios park for a while before being taken off. That would actually be amazing. I don't know if Universal could do that nowadays, but I would just love to see that. Like, if Crash Bandicoot can just come back to Universal Studios as a mascot, and then just traveling around traveling around Nintendo. Or, oh my god, no, you know what would be amazing? If one day, Nintendo does announce that Crash Bandicoot is gonna be in Smash Bros. Ultimate, and at the same time in Universal Studios Japan, you just see Crash Bandicoot running around. It's like, guess who's in the game, boys? That would actually be amazing. Let's see now, what else we got here? This really does look like a Nintendo fan's dream come true. For me, this is easily my most anticipated attraction coming to Universal in the future. I am a bit jealous that Japan is getting it first, but I can't wait for Americans to get it as well. Also, it really does show how technology has evolved, especially with the meet and greet Mario and Luigi with their mouths and eyes would move similarly to Disney meet and greet characters. Yeah, that is actually true. I was actually surprised about that. There was that one quick moment. Hold on. It was when Shigeru Miyamoto was in front of that restaurant. Yeah, it's like right over here, oddly enough. It's like you see Mario and Luigi talking.
Kinopio Cafe desu.
Yeah, we get it.
Oh,
there he is.
Luigi, Mario もどうしたの? そうか、写真撮影してるのか。Oh.
Yeah, I was just surprised. It was like, oh my god, you could talk, you could move. That was kind of a shocker for me. It was like, oh my god, they're really going advanced with it, even with the costumes. And I gotta say, they don't look half bad, actually. They don't, they don't have any form of like uncanny values or anything like that. They do look fun. Okay, let's see. I'll go and I think I'll read one more before we cap this off now. Why not? Going from a guy named Koopa Dude, I think it would be perfect. Let's see. This is a childhood dream come true, and it's possibly, and this is only a fraction of it. Sure, I wish Mario wasn't the only Nintendo property being used, at least we know of, but when this comes to America, I will be planning my next trip to Universal Studios. Oh, absolutely, and I do not blame you there. And with that said, that should do it for this week in AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. And once again, I would like to go and remind you all that there will not be an episode next week because it will be in the holidays and you should be spending your time with your friends and your family and your loved ones. So we will be joining back on January 2nd. And on that time, trust me, it will be a hyped up moment because we will one more time look back at 2010 as we will be counting down the top 5 animation news of that year. So with all that said, I would like to tell you all happy holidays and please stay safe. And don't forget to follow the guidelines of wearing your mask, wash your hands, practice social distancing, and hold anti-maskers accountable. So with all that said, thank you all so much for listening. Thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, see you later, dudes.